Hi, good evening, and welcome to the Minority Report, especially this week's installment. My name is Marlon David, and I'm your host on the program this week, continuing. I want to say welcome, and indeed we look forward to a very interesting program. We have, as per usual, quite an interesting lineup of conversations for you this evening. And we do, in fact, look forward to your participation. I would have had extensive conversations with our technical team, and this week we have gotten our technical issues sorted out with respect to receiving phone calls. So the lines are also going to be opened, and I'm hearing the director in the background laughing. The lines are also going to be opened, and we do hope that as we do so, you would feel free to make your calls. You can view this program on the Tobago Updates website, as well as the Tobago Updates YouTube channel, the YouTube page, and the Tobago Updates Facebook page, which is the one that most persons actually log into. But interestingly enough as well, we can also view this program on M&E TV, a very good addition made there by the management of Tobago Updates. And if you want to send us your comments, you want to ask questions, or you just want to contribute to the general discussions, you can also send messages to 284-6597. That's 284-6597 for your WhatsApp messages. And you can also call that very number, or you can call 356-8833. That is 356-8833. So you can take those numbers down and have it on cue, so that when the opportunity presents itself this evening, you can begin to call in and contribute and let your voices as well be heard. This evening, as per usual, we want to get into some what I call the administrative matters. And today we saw quite a bit taking place in Tobago, but one of the most noteworthy things, or the notable events, was the funeral service of that young man who was dearly loved throughout Tobago. And we want to really take the opportunity yet again to extend our condolences to his family, not just him, but the three persons that we would have identified coming out of last week, the young lady Halima and also Mr. Dash, affectionately known as. And, we really want to extend condolences to all the families and friends of these individuals, and want to say that in this time of bereavement, feel free to reach out and in whatever way that we can assist. I know I speak on behalf of the minority leader and the minority counselor. We will definitely try to do so. A sad day in Tobago. I saw a number of persons there, and it spoke volumes as to the impact that this young man and those other persons would have had on the lives of people who they came into contact with. So they are, as they say, in a better place, we trust, and we in the land of the living have to continue. So I want to encourage us all to really reach out to the relatives and lend that sense of support and that sense of strength to them as they continue on this journey called life. I want to highlight, fresh out of last night, we into the sporting season, and many of us would have graced the stadium, Dwight York Stadium, and even I am still in the sporting mood, dress code today. I understand that 3,888 persons attended, and that was indeed a good show of support coming out of Tobago. And though we would have drawn the game 1-1, it still wasn't enough for the Trinidad and Tobago national team to find their way going through in the tournament. So hard luck, guys, but a good fight was put up. I have one request, and I'll say this publicly to the national coach, that we need to see at least Michael Jem Gordon on the national team plying his trade and trying to make an impact, because we know his talent coming out of Tobago. So I'm saying it publicly for the national coach to also consider. I want to say birthday greetings going out as well, 100th birthday greetings to Miss Olive Williams of Otley Street in Scarborough, achieving that milestone that so many of us really look forward to and wish that we can achieve. Having attained 100 years is a lot of experience, a lot of conversations that you would have had, but we really trust that even in that achievement that it will stand as an example to many of us in terms of the way that she lived her life and the impact that she has had on so many persons. Coming out of Bishop's High School, we saw this week a student, very, very, well, we use the term bright in layman terms, but very, very studious looking young man who topped in the first 10%, highest in all SAT scores around the world. This wasn't in Trinidad and Tobago, this wasn't in the region, the Caribbean region. This was globally achieved, and hats off to that young man. And I know that just as he would have been able to accomplish it, many other students are now following in that example, and they have somebody to look up to in terms of achieving. We also saw the Oceanus Dragon Boat team attain 4 medals at the recently held competition, the American Dragon Boat Federation Club Crew Championships out there in Panama. They are already back here, and we want to say congratulations, guys. And so we want to end off on that note in terms of gold and silver coming back to Tobago. And it's really, really a great achievement that we would have seen, and a number of persons continuing to excel in the area of sport coming out of Tobago, and it speaks volumes to the effort and the commitment that is being put in from the coaches and the clubs. So we want to really say congratulations to all persons who would have had their achievements highlighted, and as we go forward, I will definitely expect so much more. This evening I want to say welcome and hello as well to the minority leader and the minority councillor who are viewing us again this evening, and I wouldn't let it out of the bag yet who is the special guest in studio with me today, but they are looking on, they are eager for the program to get rolling and to start off so that they as well can contribute, having opted to sit this one out so that they can make some other contributions in other areas as we go forward. So good night, minority leader and minority councillor. And let me get us to the moment of truth. With me this evening in studio, I have none other than the venerable, youngest ever. And I can go on and on and on, but let me not cause the drum rolls to kick in. With me this evening, I have the political leader of the People's National Movement Tobago Council, Mr. Ansel Dennis, who is joining us, and he's becoming a fixture on the program soon, I hope. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, Marlon. Good evening to our listeners and viewers out there across Tobago and Trinidad and the world. This platform is available online, so there is this strong possibility that persons are looking on from outside of Trinidad and Tobago. It's always a pleasure to be on this program. I'm particularly happy to be here this evening to discuss some very important matters, some pertinent issues as it relates to the governance or the lack thereof of the island of Tobago. So it's a pleasure.
Thank you very much so. And indeed, before we get into the meat of our evening's discussion, we want to open the program today with a bit of what I call entertainment based on facts and reality. So I'll ask the director just to bring us in this evening with this piece.
Everybody think they are politician. Everybody know how country should run. They think they know all about parliament. They think they know how to run government. They tell you those in charge are not capable, and they don't care to hoot for the people. Nothing never looking right in the eyes. Everything they see, they just criticize. You will hear them quarreling day and night. Anything they say, they believe they're right. But give them the job, I am telling you, half of them wouldn't know what the hell to do. You put them in charges, then they don't see Running a country isn't so easy. They can handle the problems them it is. Now they know who only I and does feel the heat. One more time. You will hear them shout at election time. We will create jobs, we will cut down crime. We will build schools and hospitals too. We will cut taxes, all that we'll do. We're going to boost the economy. We're going to enhance our GDP. Our youth will have more opportunities. We will build homes for the families. We will create a political atmosphere. Big companies will want to invest here. The nation's debts, we will deal with it. And we will make sure we cut down the deficit. But I used to hear my grandmother say, you don't know where house does leak till you live in there. The same old problems start to repeat. It's now they know who only I and does feel the heat. Tell them to do so. One more time. Some of them may not pass opposition to keep an eye on the administration. But any move those in power make, they will criticize for opposing sake. They say that they have their own agenda to put in place when they get in power. But they are all caught up in the game. You give them a chance, they will do the same. Anytime an idea don't come from them, a good policy is still a problem. And most of the time you would not believe they can't come up with a better alternative. You put them in charges, then they don't see. Running the country isn't so easy. They can't handle the problems them it is. Now that
I am just feeling heat.
tell them a cruiser. One more time. Using skillful articulation, they manipulate the population and go on to win the election and go on to form the administration. Now they face in reality, they're getting all kind of difficulty, and so their cracks now begin to show. It's now they know how much they didn't know. They cannot fulfill their promises. They start to lie and making excuses, and that is the reason that no one cannot repeat the politician. Lead a problem in the THA.
Yes. I mean, that song is prophetic in nature. I was totally amazed when I heard the lyrics, and I felt as if Tobago Crusoe had written that song with this administration in mind. It is not just prophetic, but it is relevant. And I'm certain, and even on that night, many persons were chiming in and singing along with the song because they knew within themselves.
That's right.
That the song was hitting the nail on the head. It was very relevant, very applicable to what we're seeing now. So thank you, Tobago Crusoe, for that very insightful piece of culture. And it takes us into our discussion this evening. Last week we saw what can only be termed as an atrocity in the governance framework of the island of Tobago. And I am glad that I have you here, Mr. Dennis, not only in the capacity of political leader of the People's National Movement, Tobago Island Council, but also as a former deputy presiding officer, which means that you are very accurate with the standing orders and the use and application of same.
Correct.
So we would have seen something take place in the legislature last week, Thursday, for the sit-in, and many of Tobago's population who may not have been logged on may have just heard the rumor and just, the frenzy about the sit-in not taking place. And so as we enter into the discussion, and I want to give you the chance to take it away from there, I want us to remind Tobago of what actually happened. So we're going to run the very short clip that the deputy presiding officer came into the house and read, and it is going to form the basis for our discussions this evening. Mr. Director, let's have the clip, please.
Honorable members, the delay in starting today's sitting was owing to the fact that the clerk of the House did not turn up for duty today, and that was done without any notification to the presiding officer or the deputy presiding officer. There exists no current deputy clerk of the House, notwithstanding the fact that this position was created by Cabinet Note number 2886 on the 14th of October 2004. Further, the Executive Council, on a note dated February 14th, 2023, approved the creation of a contract position of Assistant Clerk of the House, but that is yet to be actioned. At present, no one is legally authorized to serve as Clerk of the House. The THA Act 40 of 1996, Section 65(1) says that the Assembly shall hold an ordinary meeting as often as its business may require, and at least once every month. Additionally, Section 67 of the THA Act 40 of 1996 says that the clerk shall keep in proper form a record of the proceedings of each meeting of the Assembly. In the absence of the clerk, no one is so legally authorized to keep a proper recording of the proceedings of today's sitting. Both the law and the standing orders are silent on what should happen should the clerk of the House be absent from a sitting. The standing orders of the THA requires that the announcement of the absence of the presiding officer be announced by the clerk of the House while the deputy is invited to act. Out of the abundance of caution, today I convene the sitting to satisfy the requirement of meeting every third Thursday of the month. However, I do not wish to proceed with this sitting any further with the absence of the clerk of the House and with the lack of clear legal advice on the matter. I am not a lawyer, and I do not wish to pretend that even the steps I am taking today is legal. In this regard, I apologize to this House on behalf of the Assembly Legislature. At this juncture, I will call this House to adjourn for the remainder of this day. Notice of resumption will be given by the Clerk of the House in accordance with the law as soon as is possible. The Executive Council business, as well as oral questions and Chief Secretary questions, will now happen at the next sitting. The members that wrote notifying of their absence today will have their absence duly noted for whatever recording of this sitting that we have. Thank you, and have a good afternoon.
Thank you for being forthright.
Thank you very much. And so we are off with our discussion this evening. So, political leader, tell us what was going through your mind when you saw this unfolding situation.
Well, I was appalled. I was embarrassed. I was flabbergasted. I was shocked. And at the same time shook by that particular development. The deputy presiding officer said in his statement, used the words, in an abundance of caution. On that day, there was actually an abundance of stupidity. Because based on my understanding of the law, the THA Act and also the standing orders, there was no need to cancel that sitting. There was no need to attempt to publicly humiliate and embarrass the clerk of the House. And there was no need to bring the Tobago House of Assembly, our distinguished house that all Tobagonians should be proud of, to that level of embarrassment, because it was embarrassing not only to the THA, but to the island generally.
Yes.
And I want the people of Tobago to really understand and appreciate what took place last week, Thursday. Because here you have the Tobago House of Assembly, the Tobago House of Assembly, our legislature, the highest decision-making body on the island of Tobago, the highest level of government on the island of Tobago, would come to have its regular meeting. And by the way, the Tobago House of Assembly is required by law to meet at least once per month. Now, it can be more, but it certainly should not be less in accordance with the law. So they were supposed to meet, and as usual, the hour of 1:30 p.m. came, which is the time the sitting is supposed to begin. That time came, and as usual, the sitting did not begin. Persons were logged into the live. I'm sure persons were seated in the public gallery as well, waiting for the sitting to begin at 1:30. And I want to say this and put it on the public record as well. I cannot recall from 2013 up to December of 2021, when I was an assemblyman, I cannot recall under the leadership of, first it was Mr. Kelvin Charles, and then you had Miss Denise Soyafat Angus, and within there you had for a couple months as well Miss Vanessa Cutting Thomas.
Yeah.
And at one point you had former assemblyman Mr. Oswald Williams. I cannot recall at any time a sitting ever beginning late. And we have moved from that, a period of great respect and great adoration by the members of the Tobago House of Assembly, for the Tobago House of Assembly, for that institution and for that august body. We have moved from a great level of respect to a situation now where there is clearly a lack of respect for the Tobago House of Assembly. When sittings can begin consistently late, the presiding officer, well, we have to blame her, because in most instances, I'm sure there was a quorum. There were enough assemblymen present to begin the sitting. And most times the sitting begin late, sometimes 1:45, 15 minutes late, half an hour late sometimes. It is absolutely disrespectful. And the people of Tobago saw the signals, you know, because I don't know if you recall during that 6-6 period, when they had this so-called protest, to protest the 6-6 tie, because of course at the point in time it was suitable to them.
Yes.
So they wanted the same clerk of the house to pull straws, although the laws doesn't cater for that. And I can recall, of course, they walked around the house, led by Watson Duke at the point in time, walked around the Tobago House of Assembly legislature, I think it was 7 times. And then, of course, they slept in the chamber overnight.
Yes.
Led by Watson Duke again, who loll off on the chairs in the chamber, eating KFC, eating pizza. Absolutely no respect for the Tobago House of Assembly. And therefore, it should not surprise us that we are in a period now where the business of the people of Tobago as it relates to the legislature is not taken seriously. It is kindergarten stuff taking place in the legislature. So, of course, contrary to the law, the deputy presiding officer, obviously advised by somebody, I don't know if it was the presiding officer or the chief secretary, he did indicate, however, that he did not get any legal advice on the matter. But he decided to announce that there will be a cancellation of the sitting. And I'm looking at the date. Today is the 28th of March. The THA is required to meet once per month. As far as I'm concerned, what took place there is not considered a meeting of the assembly.
Yeah.
A meeting of the assembly did not take place, right? So therefore, we have a situation where the possibility exists that the month of March will come to an end and the Tobago House of Assembly would not have a meeting. And that the people of Tobago is a clear breach, yet another breach of the laws of Trinidad and Tobago, which requires the Tobago House of Assembly to meet on a monthly basis. And the question has to be asked, why are we in this position? Now, the deputy presiding officer suggested to us that the clerk stayed home, informed nobody that she was going to stay home. And I am prepared to say to the people of Tobago, based on the information that I have, and I have no reason to doubt the information, but I can say clearly to the people of Tobago that that was a lie.
Blatant.
A blatant lie. The clerk of the house did in fact inform somebody that she was not going to attend that particular sitting because of illness. She wasn't feeling well.
Yeah.
Right? And for them to come in this way, and it's only an attempt to embarrass the clerk, you know, because they have an attitude where any public servant that challenges them and their foolishness,
Yes.
because they love to come with illegal and downright foolish proposals, expecting public servants to participate in their foolishness. And any public servant who dares to challenge them, who dares to challenge their ignorance and their arrogance, is always subjected to either being thrown under the bus. They have thrown many public servants.
Victimized.
We saw where the Secretary of Education recently had her spat with the then Administrator of Education. We saw the same thing with the Administrator of Infrastructure. We saw as well where the Administrator of the Division of Agriculture was being blamed for late salaries, and it's always the public servant's fault. So they either throw the public servant under the bus. In some cases, public servants are being victimized. In some cases, they are being humiliated and embarrassed. In some cases, they are even verbally abused at meetings. And that is what is obtaining today for governance or leadership of the island of Tobago. And of course, it is quite unfortunate. So it clearly was an attempt to embarrass the clerk, who clearly there is some issues taking place between the clerk and some members of the house. Tobagonians, I'm
We've
sure,
been
will
seeing
will recall the outburst of the very disrespectful Chief Secretary when he shouted across the floor that the clerk didn't even know what she's doing.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? I actually did a Facebook post about that because I was so taken aback by it. He was prepared to shout across the floor to a senior public servant. The clerk don't even know what she's doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we even
in fact, the clerk, the matter that was being debated at the time, the clerk was actually right. If I remember clearly.
Yes, she was.
So clearly they think that they know, when in fact they don't know.
We also saw the attack on the said clerk on their program, if we can call it that.
Exactly,
where
the full disclosure program.
Yeah.
So they continue to attack public servants. They continue to disrespect public servants, the same public servants who bought into their mandate. The same public servants who bought into the ex gratia for Christmas 2021. We are now in Easter 2023. No ex gratia.
Optics. A lot of promises.
As a matter of fact, the ex gratia moved from $10,000 to $1,000 now. And based on my information, I'm hearing that there are some departments who may not even get the ex gratia payment. Right? So it is quite unfortunate what transpired in the Tobago House of Assembly legislature last week, and it was totally unnecessary. The sitting, based on the law, based on the standing orders, the sitting could have gone ahead in the absence of the clerk. Because the clerk doesn't sit there and take the minutes, you know.
And I think that is one of the things that Tobago has to become aware of. I don't think many persons understand that, because the way that it was brought across is as if without the clerk being present nothing could take place.
And come on to Begonian. Let's pick sense from nonsense, as we like to say. Pick sense from nonsense, right? So you have a Tobago House of Assembly, an August body. Within that law, within that act, and within the standing orders, provisions are made for if the presiding officer, the person who is responsible for managing the sittings, if the presiding officer falls ill or is absent, as she was absent for that sitting in Trinidad, I'm told she was, there's provision for her absence in the person of a deputy presiding officer. Are you aware that both the presiding officer and the deputy presiding officer could be absent and the show could still go on? Are you aware that even if the deputy presiding officer is also absent, in addition to the presiding officer, that the members of the House can elect somebody to conduct the sitting on that particular day? Are you aware that several members of the House can be absent? Right? I think the quorum used to be 9 with the change in the number of seats. I think it's probably now 11. Right? Which means up to 5 members of the House. And don't hold me to this because I'm not sure what is the new quorum. Right? But a number of members of the House can be absent and the show can still go on. The sitting could still continue. And we have seen situations where the Chief Secretary absent, the Leader of Assembly Business absent, and guess what? The Chief Secretary rose to his feet, moved a motion to appoint, I think it was Trevor James, to be Leader of Assembly Business for that particular day. So some of them absenting themselves from sittings, in some cases two consecutive sittings. But the one day the clerk of the House falls ill, all fall down. Does that make sense, people of Tobago? Absolutely not. And therefore the sitting could have gone ahead in the absence of this one clerk. The clerk of the House is really an office, you know. The clerk of the House, of course, is in the form of the individual who is a public servant, the most senior public servant in the legislature, right? Pretty much comparable to an administrator of a division, right? But within that office, you have people responsible for typing, you have clerks, you have all kinds of support staff, you have the people responsible for taking record of the sittings, you have the people responsible for the Hansard. All the clerk has to do as it relates to the sitting is basically affix her signature to the Hansard document. So even the clerk was absent, the sitting could have gone ahead because there are people there who are quite capable of doing exactly what the clerk does: sit, get up, read the order paper, right, in the correct order, announcements by the presiding officer, bills coming back from cabinet until they eventually get to motion. There are individuals there who are quite capable of doing that. Trained as well, they have been working there for years, sitting under the clerk, and therefore the sitting could have gone on. And then of course, whatever requires the clerk's signature, I think the Hansard document for the sitting for that day will require her signature. The order paper for the following sitting would require her signature. Whatever requires the clerk's signature, she wouldn't be sick forever. Could have been signed the next day, the day after that, because the sittings are once per month. We now see where somebody was appointed to act in the meantime. So several things could have been done. And that is why I said it wasn't an abundance of caution, but it was an abundance of stupidity. If people just think, put aside the arrogance, put aside their desire to belittle public servants, because clearly they felt, well, this is a good opportunity to embarrass her. So come and tell the people she stay home, and she didn't tell nobody, and that is the reason why our big, respected Tobago House of Assembly couldn't have a sitting. But it didn't embarrass the clerk. They embarrassed themselves. And they embarrassed the entire island with them.
Because political leader, on that note that you're explaining, I too began to look into it and did some digging. And I am certain you may have as well been present, because this would have been under your tenure as an assemblyman. In November, December 2019, I think it was, there was an instance where the clerk of the House at that time was absent. She was on leave.
Yes.
And on both occasions, her assistant deputized.
Of course.
So there's clear precedence in several forums before the sitting of the House where the clerk, in terms of the office of the clerk, the person in the office was not present.
Correct.
And someone deputized. What was wrong now?
And there's no requirement for the clerk to be in a sitting for it to be legal, you know. You check the THA Act and check the standing order and tell me if you see any requirement that the clerk must sit there whole day, or sit there at the beginning of the sitting, or sit there for any whole sitting in order for that sitting to be legal.
Well, clearly they didn't, and he did in fact indicate that he had no advice, no legal advice, and that he wasn't a lawyer. But something else stood out to me actually in this whole scenario. Now, as you would have found out, and as we would have found out in our digging, the clerk did in fact inform someone the morning of her illness, and presently she's on a number of days sick leave as we speak. And coming out of that information being passed on, these individuals spend the entire day trying to craft this message to embarrass the clerk. And by the end of the day, and this spoke to me loudly in terms of how inhumane this administration is, not one of these persons took up the phone to call the clerk to find out how she was feeling. This is us. This is the person who you sit every month
and therefore it leads us to another kind of discussion. The issue of sensitivity.
Yes.
The issue of empathy. And not only that, leadership. Because you can't lead people who you don't care about, you know. As a leader, you will never get the desired results. If your attitude towards people, especially the people that you expect to support you and to work with you to get your job done, if your attitude is that you don't care about them, you don't respect them, you're belittling them, you're abusing them, and don't get me wrong, there are times where you might be required to deal with people firmly. As chief secretary, as assistant secretary in any division, and most recently as chief secretary, there were times that it was required to deal with persons firmly. But you can be firm without being disrespectful. And I have never at any point in time thrown any public servant under any bus. So it speaks to a lack of leadership, a total lack of concern and care, not just for Tobago and the people of Tobago, but even for the people that they are to work together with to achieve the objectives that they set out to achieve. And sometimes I feel that they don't even care about each other as a team.
Well, we know it has come to hand of some personal and close quarter fighting taking place. We don't know how true it is, but a lot of the information is coming to hand where we seeing some imploding taking place, but we don't want to talk about that. We are not interested
but it is
in
clear, anybody who is observing and thinking will obviously know that if a chief secretary is in charge, right, the law gives him the authority to appoint and disappoint secretaries and assistant secretaries. He's in charge, and if such a chief secretary can promise a reshuffle since December. He promised that the reshuffle will take place by the end of the year. And if we are now March and the only reshuffle we're seeing is a reshuffle of political identity for a second time, right? So 2 political parties and an independent label later, we have had no reshuffle of the Executive Council. And that tells you clearly that the Chief Secretary is not necessarily in charge of his team. He said to us that the delay of the reshuffle is because of logistical challenges. Was that the word he used?
Yes.
Logistical challenges.
Very good with words. Very, very good with words. But again, as the minority leader always says, what is said is always different from what is done. And folks, we want to open the lines a bit. I'll give you the cue at this time so that persons can also get your calls in. I'm seeing a number of comments and people are really having quite a lot to say in support of what we're discussing. And I mean also sending out get well and expressing empathy for the clerk of the assembly as well, who, as indicated, is presently on some sick leave as well. And we hope that she would indeed recuperate quickly and come back out to carry on the business of the people and the business of the legislature. The numbers to call are 284-6597, 284-6597, and 356-8833, 356-8833. Let me also take the opportunity to remind persons to, let's be respectful on the live with our comments. Let's not get personal. Let's discuss. The program is open for all and sundry to view. And as indicated by the political leader when we began, and we keep saying every week, we know that everybody looks at this program.
Who wants to get personal could get personal, you know, especially hiding behind the fake profiles.
The fake profiles. But
I see now where as well, I didn't even know that was possible, where you could actually pay for loves on Facebook.
Okay, so we have a call.
I don't know if they were
come
paid
back
for
to that
free,
one.
but we're seeing loves from it appears to be Asia.
Caller, good night.
Hi, good night. Good night, Mr. Dennis.
Hi, caller. Good night.
Yes. Good night. Good night, Mr. Dennis. Yes. Hello.
Caller.
Yeah, good night. You mightn't be hearing me. I'm not hearing you for some reason. But I'm just going to speak and I hope it comes through.
Are they still on the line?
Yes, I am. Yes, I'm going to just speak. I want to say Tobago is a small state.
Yeah, I'm seeing the TV working feverishly. We're hearing very faintly, but it's not coming through the system.
Yes. And I hope that, I'm very disappointed to see that people came into...
Whilst we get that sorted out, we're actually hearing the caller, but
I am hearing you.
Coming through the system.
I am hearing you.
So while they sort that out, you all will just cue us as soon as we're ready to go. She's still on the line. Yes, folks. So we're going to have that sorted out. Again, we're hearing the call, but it is not coming through the system so that everyone can benefit. So when we get that sorted, they'll cue me and we'll get that caller in. So back to what we were saying, it stems and sits a lot on the leadership. And I felt really disappointed in that fact that someone can take that opportunity with someone's illness to spend time to come up with a plot or a ploy to discredit, to embarrass, to create a stink around the person's name and function, instead of simply taking up the phone and asking, how are you doing? And based on again, investigation, what was uncovered is that everything was put in place.
Yes. Yes.
For one of the persons who work at the assembly to deputize on the day.
As happened before.
As has happened before, without hiccup.
Correct.
Without hiccup.
Correct. So it's absolute foolishness.
Yeah.
And to some extent, wickedness.
Well, I think wickedness is probably the better term, because it has come to hand. The information is that when the individual was about to enter the house, the instruction came to not do it. Mm-hmm. Cease, don't go.
Yes.
Just to provide the opportunity to scandalize. And we have the call.
Hello.
And that is why I said I strongly believe that the deputy presiding officer was ill-advised,
misled,
misinformed.
So, folks, we have it sorted. Caller, good evening.
Yes, hi, good evening.
Hi, welcome to the program.
Hi, welcome to everybody on the live. Hi, Gavin. Hi, Mel, everybody. Mr. Dennis, good night. You know what I am blessed. You know what I have to say to Tobago, that new party they are founding? Anything built on deceit will not stand. You know, I don't mind. You're saying this is the first true Tobago party, but that is the same thing you all said about PDP. What about the forwards? What about top? What about Mr. Hochoy party? And you know, I detest a lying spirit. And every time these independents come, because I look at Parliament channel, I look at things and I see them lying. And you know what? Tobago people clapping the lie. And God Himself will stop them. Nobody have to stop them, you know. God Himself will intervene in this whole situation. Mark my word. And He will stop this party in their tracks. Because you cannot victimize people for choice, and you have Tobagonians afraid to talk. They're afraid to come out and talk. They're messaging each other. They're afraid to come out and talk. You understand? Because they're afraid to lose their job. They're afraid that you will boycott their business. And righteousness exalts a nation. And this is to the independent leader. And this is from a woman of God. Watch God mash up your plans. Because your plans that you stole from Mr. Duke, and Mr. Duke is not, I don't consider him right up there. God Himself going to destroy your plans. I give it 6 months. Watch God.
Wow.
No comment.
we have what may seem to be a prophetic word there. Thanks, caller, for sharing your sentiments. And again, I can understand where you're coming from, the feeling of discontent, the disgust, everything.
And I'm happy she spoke about the lies, because the most lies, and I follow politics all over the world. I consider myself a student of international affairs and international relations, and therefore I read a lot about what is taking place in Europe, the United States, Great Britain, Israel. I follow the politics across the globe. And of course, Donald Trump is is probably in a class by himself, but
yeah, definitely.
It is the most lies and the most attempts at misleading a population that I've ever seen. I've seen the leader of this administration lie to the people of Tobago, sometimes at a rate of 3 times a week. Almost every time he makes a public statement, there is always some attempt to mislead. And I'm happy she mentioned that.
Thank you very much for that. I mean, that point, those statements you made, caller, and I'm glad you even went as far as identifying yourself as a woman of God, so that there's no ambiguity in the solidness of what you are saying. And on the heels of that, let me take the opportunity at this time, whilst we seem to be getting another call queued up, I want to take the opportunity as well, and I'll do so again at the end of the program, to invite all and sundry next week, Monday the 3rd of April, to come out for a call to prayer and thanksgiving. It is a prayer service that is going to be hosted out of the Office of the Minority Leader, and this is now becoming an annual prayer and thanksgiving. We would have done it last year, early in the year, and
this is a real call to pray.
This is that's why I'm going with it. This is a real call to pray. This is not a gimmick. This is not a joke.
This is not a situation where you're under pressure at a meeting and you just announce that the first day of every month is a day of prayer.
Yeah.
And on top of that, in some cases, they are forgetting,
Several cases.
They're not even remembering that they announced that the first day of every month is a day of prayer. So they're not even remembering to arrange to have these...
To pray.
Well, I'm not sure they're remembering to pray. The chief secretary is a religious man, so I assume that he prays every day. But this is a real call to pray.
So, Director, you could pull it back up. We're inviting everyone, and that's why we're hosting this at the Milford Road Esplanade in Scarborough at 9:30 a.m. on Monday morning. We're not asking persons to leave your work undone, but we're asking persons who can make the time. It will not go past 12 noon. That is the intention. Actually, we are trying to keep this within a 2-hour window. But when God begins to move, you never know what happens. But it is the intention to keep it within a 2-hour window. And we're asking all and sundry to join with us on Monday as we lift up Tobago, especially in prayer, as we lift up this administration, we lift up the island, we lift up the economy, we lift up the families, the men, the women, the children, the schools, the banking sector. We're going to really get into a time of prayer where we seek God's face for direction for this island of Tobago. We're also going to be streaming live on Tobago Updates for those of you who definitely cannot make the service physically. We are going to be having it streamed live. But for those who can make it, we're asking you to come down to the Esplanade, and we're going to be in and around the Rotunda area, set up properly, miking systems and so on. So persons throughout the environs can also hear and participate in this prayer and Thanksgiving service. So come out, join with us as we lift up the island and its persons, its people in prayer unto God. And we're going to be joined also by a number of this island's religious leaders, because at the end of the day, we all must put aside whatever differences we may have and come together so that we can all go before God and cry out. Yeah?
Definitely.
So I wanted to take that opportunity, and we're going to also end as well with that flyer. Let me take the opportunity to invite persons as well to log in tomorrow to a press conference at 2 p.m. that is going to be hosted by the People's National Movement Island Council, the Tobago Council, and led by guest in studio, the political leader, Mr. Ansel Dennis. You want to say anything on that, or you want to just leave the suspense?
Well, we just taking the opportunity to talk to the people of Tobago again as a political party. One thing about the People's National Movement is that we are organized. We are strong, even in opposition. And I was reminded today that in the Tobago space, dozens of political parties came up against the PNM. And where are they today? The PDP that defeated the PNM. Where is the PDP today?
There's no more.
Imagine the PDP defeated the PNM, got into power, and somehow the PDP is out of power without the PNM defeating the PDP.
I like how that analogy came.
And of course, they are forming a new political party with the intention of not defeating the PNM, but with the intention of simply holding on to power. Holding on to power that was stolen from the PDP. Because the PDP got the mandate, an overwhelming mandate from the people of Tobago. Right? So they operated as independents for a few months, and now they decided that they want to form a political party because they understand the importance of political parties. Of course, when it was suitable to them, they discounted and belittled and played down on the importance of a political party because they wanted to sell this idea of being independent. Well, guess what? That is the reason the chief secretary can't reshuffle yet. Because everybody independent. And the secretary is telling him
permission.
Secretary is singing the that David Rudder song when he sang about Hulsi Bagan. They're not moving.
I should have had that song queued up, man. A lot of people don't know Hulsi Bagan, you know.
They don't know that song?
They don't know. A lot of people don't know that song.
But David Rhoda sang that song, right?
Yes. That is a very old one. You
Very
pull
old
out from in
song.
the archive.
I remember it as a child, man.
I'm seeing we have a voice note. Is it queued up to be played? Not yet. Yes, folks. So also tomorrow at 2 p.m., stay tuned as well to log into the press conference led by the political leader, Mr. Ansel Dennis. So political leaders, because we're winding down here and I'm giving persons the chance to send in their voice notes and to call and so on. But I mean, back to, as we close off on the issue of the collapse of the sit-in. Now, what does this mean for Tobago? Yes, we already saw listen to the explanation of the legal ramification of it. But in terms of people's expectations, and we've seen, as you said, the overwhelming mandate was given, and people came into this with very high expectations. And we have seen over the last couple of months a number of disappointments. And while the people of Tobago are being disappointed time and time and time again, we see the administration, the independents, taking every opportunity to frolic, to fly.
It's a travel club, you know.
It's a travel club. I thought that we have
are the people of Tobago
travel agency.
aware? Are the people of Tobago aware that some secretaries leave the country without the approval and knowledge of the chief secretary? Everybody doing what they want. It is a total lack or a total collapse of leadership, a collapse of order, a collapse of good governance that is taking place in, well, I shouldn't even say the Tobago House of Assembly, that is taking place in that administration.
Yes, yeah. And incidentally, one of the questions that is outstanding for months already that the minority leader would have asked the chief secretary is for an account of the total travel bill.
I cannot wait to hear that figure because I am sure that figure will be record breaking. Right? So I can't wait to hear the figure. And there's a reason they're not answering the question, you know.
Exactly.
What date the minority leader put in that
That
question?
was in November.
And we know in March.
Yeah.
And we cannot get an answer on the total travel expenditure for
2022. Up till November.
Reminds me of the 300 million in roads, because Trevor took about 3 months
before
to answer that question, and we saw what the answer revealed.
Yes.
So clearly.
Yes. I don't know if the question was filed with music attached to it, because it is the first time I've seen the chief secretary dance so much to present a response to a particular question.
Simple question.
Simple.
People of Tobago, the minority leader asked the chief secretary a simple question. How much money was spent on travel from the time you got into office in December 2021 to the end of 2022? 3 months now, no answer from an administration, from a chief secretary who promised to be transparent.
Yes.
No answer after 3 months.
And last week, I specifically played the clip where the chief secretary said to Tobago to hold him to a higher standard than even his charges, the assemblymen. And now we're seeing something totally different. We have a voice note queued up.
Good night to the co-host and to the minority leader. This is Tobago in the house here. Well, I thanks for the information that you are putting out there. Now, mind you, Carnival gone. We band leaders fight them tooth and nail. They try to destroy Carnival. So I'm saying thanks to the 9 band leaders that still came out and tried to give Tobago a little grandmother of all carnivals. We meet into Easter. We ain't hear nothing but Easter, but they launched jazz. So they had like 2 events. One at Shaw Park Cultural Complex, and then they had something down on the Esplanade. So I would like you, Mr. Minority Leader, to ask them on behalf of we the band leaders, when we get in with Monties, how much money is they spend to launch the jazz, right? And another thing, I see all your touch on with the AG and Mr. Watson Duke, where he's an assemblyman. So you see what direction that going. But oops, remember it's not PDP there, it's the independent crew. So we won't even hear nothing on that. So thank you again, guys. You all oh, Mr. Calvin Morris, one more thing. I thought THA workload is too big, but the higher people, have you gotten any of your Burgesses to be hired in any of the division, especially THA Health? Just asking. Good night, yeah. Good night to the host and good night to Mr. Ansel Dennis. Thank you for the information and for educating some of us who would not have known what the standing orders are and what the provisions are for in case if something like this happen. But it seems like a clerk, a presiding officer, can't get sick. Nobody don't know when they will get sick. I myself didn't know I would have gotten sick because there's a sickness going around. And I'm just coping with it. But come on, you have to take care of. And this is the attitude of these people. But I saying it out loud, it's good for them. It's good. Because why? When the PNM was telling them, big hardback men and women was jumping out, oh, we fed up at the PNM, they didn't do nothing for 21 years, and wherever kutela. If we have discrepancy in our party, we know how to deal with it. But these people and them, they don't know how to deal with it. All the business is out in the streets. PNM is like husband and wife. We fall out, we kiss and we make up, we go to bed feeling jolly and get up good the next day. So this is what Tobagonians of themselves look for. And on top of it, wasn't it said that THA workload is too large? But here it is. You hire people, you leave out the minority council. They must be leave out Watson Duke and all. And they hire the people. Then you're hearing the book missing because you had other people name was in that book. So they presume who was in the book is PNM people. Come on. All I say, all I would not victimize nobody, but they mouth locked down. Well, my mouth ain't locking down. They could victimize me all they want. I'm working 20-something years in health, and if they decide to send me home, I know they have to pay me for all the years that I work. So I know my rights. So once again, thank you for that update and information on educating Tobago people because they need it.
Thank you very much,
Indeed.
caller. She spoke on quite a number of issues.
Yeah, I like how she raised the employment thing, and I just want to comment briefly on that because, interestingly, as somebody said in the meeting in Roxborough, that all the people are being employed from Speyside, right? But somebody brought something to my attention, And it's the fact that in the division of infrastructure, you have some workers there that are casual under the development program, I believe. And normally what we'll obtain is that when there are vacancies on the permanent list, those persons who were there for many years as casual will be given that opportunity to go across, having been in the system for many years. Apparently, this administration, in their wisdom,
Yes.
has decided to bypass
That
those
process.
existing workers in the system who are there for years. And the new people who are coming into the system are now permanent
Yes.
before persons who were there for years. So it's another situation where Tobagonians are being treated unfairly. Tobagonians are being victimized because the assumption is that they who are there were hired by the PNM because they were PNM.
Exactly.
And the assumption can be as well that it is the PDPs, not PDP, independent. Well, they're still independent. I guess they're independent
We're not
until
sure.
they're independent until when
launch.
is the date? The 4th,
Supposed to be next
in
week,
the height of
Tuesday.
Easter.
If they make it.
in the height of Easter.
Yeah.
Right?
Holy week.
So this administration, I guess they assume that the people they're hiring are considered PDP and their supporters. Right? So it's not about fairness. It's not about being fair to the people who were there for years,
Waiting.
who are still casual and who should have been given that opportunity to be permanent. And then the new people who are being hired now coming into the system who don't have the experience, right? They will of course get employment, but on the casual side of things. So it's not about fairness. It's not about being just, but it's clearly about political benefit and stuff like that.
And we also have something unfolding as well on Facebook. And as we know, this administration does most of their governing on Facebook.
Correct.
And let me not use governing, just making decisions.
Right.
And over the weekend, we would have seen one of their most avid supporters in an outburst.
Yeah. She said some interesting things.
Some very interesting points that she made.
She said, she alleged that the chief secretary sent somebody in a vehicle home by her to collect a resume from her son.
Yes.
I hope that service will be available to other Tobagonians. The collection of
Yes.
resumes.
At home.
Do carry it in. Do leave home to
No.
go and submit any
apply.
resumes anyway. Do apply.
Don't put your name in no
The
book.
chief secretary will send somebody to collect your resume.
At home.
Very interesting.
Comfort of your home. And when I listened to that lady speak, I felt sadness, but I also felt a sense of gratification, because this is a lady who, was very much involved when the PNM was doing anything before, and went on a rampage, and would have, as she indicated, this is not me saying, she indicated that she went near and far and get cussed and they run but she still stood to fight and got the administration in. And she don't want anything but her son, she says, who has X amount of qualifications. And she went on an all-out attack. So what I am saying and what I am looking at now is to see if over the coming week that young man will be provided with a job. And I'm saying to our viewers,
That will be a very interesting
I will continue to follow it up.
official, because somebody said it to me. Somebody said to me, by next week you get an hour.
Yes. So I will follow it up, and if in fact, which we expect, that a job will be provided, I will come on this same platform and inform Tobago
Of course. they
that
should
the
be-
decision has been made
they
via Facebook.
So they know what to do to get a job.
So you know what to do to get a job.
Go on Facebook and cuss them stink, and you will get, you or whoever you want to get,
Whoever
a job
you
will get a
want.
job. But the person who sent the voice note previously, the last one, said something that I do not agree with. She said the people of Tobago look for that. The people of Tobago don't look for that. The people of Tobago were looking for ex gratia in time for Christmas of $10,000.
Correct.
They were looking for transparency, leaps and bounds beyond what the PNM provided. They were looking for leadership, again, leaps and bounds beyond what any previous PNM administration provided.
10 million
They
per
were
community.
looking for, is $10 million?
$10 million electoral
district. They were looking for 5,000 jobs created within 6 months of them being elected to office.
Yeah.
They were looking for a chief secretary who would have a zero tolerance for corruption. They were looking for all the bread and butter issues to be sorted out. They were looking for gratuity to be paid. They were looking for salaries to be paid on time. They were looking for improvements in the tourism sector. They were looking for Tobago to be placed first in the agriculture sector. They were looking forward to Tobago goods being given emphasis for any need for goods by the Tobago House of Assembly. They were looking for a group of secretaries who would have been more on the ground and more humble and more accessible than anything the PNM provided before. That's what the people of Tobago look for.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they have been sold, and I have to say I'm a Tobagoan as well. We were sold a lie. We were sold a dream that, based on what we have seen thus far, 3 administrations later, 3 administrations, and I have to do some research because that could be another record. That could be another unprecedented development.
Yeah.
The first time any jurisdiction has been led by 3 different administrations without an election in the space in less than 2 years. Don't forget
Less
that part.
than 2 years.
Less than 2 years, we were led by a PDP administration. We were led by an independent administration. Well, apparently it's 2 independent administrations. There's an independent administration led by Farley, and there's another independent administration led by Trevor James. So it's 2 administrations within the one administration. And very soon,
one to come,
we will be led by a new political party. We don't know the name or the color as yet. So in the space of 2 years, Tobago, for the first time in its history, and possibly the first time for any jurisdiction anywhere in the world, have been led by 4 different administrations.
Well, that is record breaking.
I'm going to do the research.
Yeah. And even though we don't know anything else, what we do know is the registration price of $350.
$325.
$325,
registration fee. So
as the starter kit.
So they didn't even give the people the ex gratia yet. At least if you give the ex gratia of $1,000,
you could,
right? I guess the people could.
You get money to register.
Pay the $325 out of the $1,000 ex gratia to join this new unknown political party. But no ex gratia, $325, which could give you a nice hamper, a nice set of grocery items. $325 to join this new political party. Interesting times.
Interesting times.
I and all did not predict this. I did not see this coming at all. Nobody could have told me before now that Tobago would have been in this position at this present time. Nobody could have told me that the PDP will serve the shock in less than a year, and that we'll have an independent administration, and that this independent administration will now be seeking to form a new political party. And nobody could have told me that a group of individuals who promised so much and who came into this with such a huge mandate could make such a big mess of things in such a short space of time.
We have another voice note.
I had to come back in one more time. I like how Mr. Dennis saying it. You're hiring people willy-nilly and people, the newcomers and them coming in. They even have people who had 3 more years to meet 60. You have young people who now turn 18. I don't mind that. But come on, let it be do across the board, because I can recall in the 90s when the NAR was running Tobago affairs. It was hard for a person like myself who is known as a PNM, like them had a radar that them could have see who was a PNM in order to hire them, and how I managed to get a 30 days up at Lansamy is through my mother-in-law, and I had to say thanks to her. And she had also come down on them and tell them, no, you don't know this young lady. How could you say you see PNM mark on a people applying for work, give the people and them the work? And then when Mr. Ove London came in, he changed up things so it was easier for people to get hired in the departments and them. And I give kudos to that. But this administration, them gone back to the narrow times, right? And it is unfortunate, right? So just saying that, as they used to say a long time, is who know who, but this one here is not who know who. It's who I want to put in, and you have no say. That no damn dog back. That is what they're telling me. Okay.
Thanks a lot, caller. Thank you for your contribution yet again. Before we close, political leader, I also want to just throw this out into the public domain for those who continue to follow the issues as we speak of them. I know if the minority leader was here, he would have thrown it out to make Tobago aware. I know that about almost 2 months ago, you would have spoken of an issue, the challenges that were being experienced in terms of setting up and formalizing the staffing at the office of the minority leader. And we would have seen a particular assistant secretary come out again on the program.
That challenge still exists?
That challenge is still existing, even though persons would have acted in shock and would have agreed that should have been addressed immediately.
People in Tobago need to understand the far-reaching consequences of these actions. And I'm beginning to think that it's deliberate, because you have the minority who has a responsibility to keep this very special administration. This is not your typical administration.
Yeah.
This is a very special administration in check. And the minority leader, who requires the support of staff to carry out the business of the minority, to put questions to these secretaries, because in some cases, you will not know certain things happening.
If not.
Or let me put it differently. Tobago would not have known about certain developments had it not been for the minority leader and his team putting questions in the house and keeping press conferences. And when you have a situation that the staff members of the minority leader's office are not being paid, are not being given proper tenure, and other issues exist, then that to me, I don't know about the general Tobago population, but that to me is a threat to our democracy.
Exactly.
Because you are attempting there to frustrate the minority leader's office and hamper his ability to do his job, and that is a very serious matter.
And let me take the opportunity to read. Whilst I was speaking, I didn't even know, I wasn't aware, the minority leader actually put a comment in. Please let them know, meaning Tobago, it's 2 months now since staff has not been paid. Pure wickedness.
So 2 months.
2 months
the
now.
The staff of the minority leader's office
has not been paid.
Has not been paid.
For no justifiable reason.
People of Tobago, that has to be taken for what it is. That is clearly an attempt to frustrate the office of the minority leader and hamper his ability to discharge his constitutional responsibilities to the people of Tobago. And that matter has to be treated with very urgently and in a very strong but legal way.
Yes, yes. And I know I can say that the call has already been made to the chief administrator, under whose remit these types of situations fall, for her to intervene
You remember
yet
when
again.
You remember when the UNC government threw the opposition leader out of parliament?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
This is a direct threat to the democratic process in Tobago and to the work coming out of the office of the minority leader. And I mean, all options have been exhausted at this time with respect to redress. I know that they would have gone on a spate claiming that the minority leader didn't follow process and he's a man of documentation, and yet still
And I
he
saw
didn't.
them talking
But that was
foolishness.
debunked.
I saw them talking foolishness about a 2004 note.
Yeah.
When they got into office and they looked at their staffing arrangements in the offices of the secretaries and the assistant secretaries, why they didn't go with the note from 2004? As a matter of fact, they did not even go with the provisions made for the previous administration.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
They went and they changed it to give themselves additional staff members in the office.
Yeah.
And may I say that was even totally unnecessary.
How
But
much
the
was
minority
given?
leader, the office of the minority leader, must operate based on a 2004 structure.
Mm-hmm.
People of Tobago think and consider what
and
is really
mind you,
taking place on this island.
Even the structure that was set in precedence when they were in the office of the minority leader, they have failed to even formalize that arrangement.
And I should have mentioned that, because when they were in opposition, Watson Duke as minority leader, he was not restricted to any 2004 structure. But now they are trying to restrict the minority leader now to a structure from 2004.
So Tobago, this is what
This is serious. Eh?
this is what is being dealt with, and this is what the office of the minority leader is facing.
And now my spirit is disturbed.
Yeah, it is disturbing. We see the flagrant disregard for workers throughout the THA. Up to recently, we saw agri workers for 4 fortnights not being paid their salaries. And when they reached out to the chief secretary again on Facebook, they said that with immediate effect, salaries started to be paid. Not all, but some. And we have to do the follow-up to see if all salaries would have been paid. So now we have a similar situation where the staff within a THA organ, the organ of the legislature, a necessary unit, have not been paid for the last 2 months. That is 60 days without salaries. And again, it is sad, but one can only wonder if it is directly an attempt to silence or to subvert the work that is coming out of the office of the minority leader. So we're calling on the powers that be, the chief administrator, even the chief secretary, to get involved in the process to try to address this with immediate effect.
The chief secretary is already involved.
Well, he is already involved, but we're calling on him publicly because all of Tobago is aware now. All of Tobago is aware that this situation continues to plague the minority leader and his team, and so we are asking that it be addressed in as quickly a manner as possible. Folks, we are out of time, not out of content, and we again commit to come here next week to continue addressing other matters, some of which would have been brought up incidentally tonight by callers, and the live is like people so tuned into what we do now
But before
that
we
they
go,
begin to predict.
before we go, I have a question. When last this administration held a post-executive media briefing?
Someone actually asked that.
Okay,
I can't even remember.
okay.
Somebody actually made the statement that all they're hearing is information from the info Tobago bits and pieces, but in terms of an actual post-exec briefing, we're still waiting. And the minority leader, as we close, he's saying here that he was advised that something like this could never happen in the office of the opposition leader. This is a direct threat to the democracy of governance in Tobago.
It is.
So folks, we want to thank you for being with us this evening, for sharing your comments, your thoughts, your recommendations, good, bad, and indifferent. The good we applaud, the bad we take under advisement, and we always seek opportunities to better the product that we deliver on this program. And we are committed to carrying out the work and the mandate as given to the Office of the Minority Leader with respect to advocacy and holding this administration accountable. I want to thank the political leader for taking time out of his schedule to be with us this evening. And I extend an open invitation for him to always sit in, always has quite a lot to say on any topic that we can bring to the fore. So thank you for being with us. I don't know if you want to have your closing remarks.
Well, simply to say that it was a pleasure being here. I cannot commit to coming every time, but I will certainly come as often as I can. And once again, I want to commend the minority leader and also the minority councillor and the rest of his team who have not been paid for 2 months for their continued efforts. Very important and very critical work on behalf of the people of Tobago. And of course, this program continues to be one with content, good content, one with factual information, and one that will definitely keep the people of Tobago informed, especially as it relates to information that the administration doesn't necessarily want them to know about. So, good evening to everyone.
Thank you very much, sir. And good evening from me. Thank you for viewing, and stay tuned to next week, Tuesday, as we continue the journey. I'm Marlon David saying good night.